Text 6.
Chapter 3, text 6.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 So good morning. In person we have Ramachandra, Narayan, Leah, Dear Govinda, Brielle, and Malini, and myself, and Prabhupada. And on the internet we have Danielle, and George, and Annette, and Dominique. So chapter 3, text 6. Karmendriyani
Karmendriyani
Samyamya
Samyamya
Ya Aste Manasa Smraran Indriyartan Vimudatma Mityacharaha Sa Uchate Karmendriyani Samyamya Yaste Manasa Smaran Indriyartan Vimudatma Mityachara Sauchate Karmendriyani Samyamya Yaste Manasa Smaran Indriyartan Vimudatma Nityachara Sauchate Karmendriyani Samyamya Yaste Manasa Smaran Indriyartan Vimudatma Nityachara Sauchate
Karmendriyani Samyamya Yaste Manasa Smaran Indriyartan Vimudatma Nityachara Sauchate
Karmendriyani Samyamya Yaste Manasasmaran Indriyartan Vimudatma Nityachara Sauchate Karmendriyani Samyamya Yaste Manasasmaran Indriyartan Vimudhatma Nityachara Sauchate
Karmendriyani Samyamya
Yaste Manasasmaran
Indriyartan Vimudyatma Mityachara Sayuchate Karmendriyani Samyamya Yaste Manasasmaran Indriyartan Vimudyatma Mityachara Sayuchate
Karmendriyani Samyamya Yaste Manasasmaran Indriyatam vimudhatma.
Yachara sauchyate.
Mityachara sauchyate.
Would anybody online like to read? Okay. Karma Indriyani,
Karma-indriyani.
the 5 working sense organs.
The 5 working sense organs.
Samyamya,
Samyamya.
controlling.
Controlling.
Ya,
Ya.
anyone who.
Anyone who.
Aste,
Aste.
remains.
Remains.
Manasa,
Manasa.
by mind.
By mind.
Smaran,
Smaran.
thinking.
Thinking.
Indriya artan,
Indriya-artan.
sense objects.
Sense objects.
Vimudha,
Vimuda.
foolish.
Foolish.
Atma,
Atma.
soul.
Soul.
Mitya achara,
Mityachara.
pretender.
Pretender.
Sa,
Sa.
he.
He.
Uchate
Uchate.
is called.
Oh.
Translation: one who restrains the senses and organs of action, but whose mind dwells on sense objects, certainly deludes himself and is called a pretender. Purport by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. There are many pretenders who refuse to work in Krishna consciousness but make a show of meditation while actually dwelling within the mind upon sense enjoyment. Such pretenders may also speak on dry philosophy in order to bluff sophisticated followers, but according to this verse, these are the greatest cheaters. For sense enjoyment, one can act in any capacity of the social order, but if one follows the rules and regulations of his particular status, he can make gradual progress in purifying his existence. But he who makes a show of being a yogi while actually searching for the objects of sense gratification must be called the greatest cheater, even though he sometimes speaks of philosophy. His knowledge has no value because the effects of such a sinful man's knowledge are taken away by the illusory energy of the Lord. Such a pretender's mind is always impure, and therefore his show of yogic meditation has no value whatsoever. So, since I have very little realization about anything, I'm going to read different lectures from Prabhupada,
Joy.
different excerpts from lectures pertaining to this.
I would disagree, but anyway. It's not time to disagree.
Thanks for sharing it. Okay. So, so something that Prabhupada says is, this Krishna consciousness movement is an art of living by which you feel your senses are fully satisfied, but you are going to be free next life. So I think that that's nice because I definitely have attachment to fulfilling my senses. So if Prabhupada says, I can fulfill my senses and be free next life, that's like the best of both worlds. He says, this is such a nice process. And I like his grammar, and artificially, if you want to stop your senses, you will fail. So that comes back to the translation here, one who restrains the senses and organs of action. So one who on the doing platform is doing what looks good, and I'm very familiar with that paradigm, but whose mind, or the being, but whose mind dwells on sense objects, certainly he deludes himself. And this reminds me of a program at David's house when it was Ekadashi, and I was like, no, I'm not gonna take breakfast, thank you. And then Malini said something like, well, are you gonna be thinking about food the rest of the day? Something like this. Because that's the point, is not just to fast, but it's to think of Krishna. So I said, okay, I'll take breakfast, because I was being a pretender. I was thinking of myself as more advanced. And Prabhupada gives the example of, I guess, someone who maybe, I don't know if he was advanced, Vishvamitra Muni. And so he was a great king and he wanted to be a yogi. So he went to the forest, gave up his kingdom, and he was meditating very seriously. But then this beautiful woman, Menaka, was sent to, I don't know if she was sent purposely to distract him, but that's what she did. She was dancing in front of him. And then as soon as he opened his eyes and looked at her, he completely became overwhelmed. And everything is gone, Prabhupada said. So sense gratification, you can't stop it artificially. It says Nirbandha Krishna Sambandha. So therefore, we're advised as students, whether boys or girls, that if you want to be serious in Krishna consciousness, you forget about all this nonsense sense gratification. But since there's people like me where I'm not really on that platform yet, he says, but if still you're disturbed, okay, all right, you can get yourself married, you can live peacefully, husband and wife, and both be engaged in Krishna consciousness. And this is the part that I like, that it's in bold. Gradually, you'll forget both husband and wife. Don't try artificially. Artificially, you'll never be successful. So for me, that's very pacifying, because I oftentimes think that I need to be more than I am, more advanced than I am, and I'm not. And then I get in all kinds of suffering and struggle, and probably even getting in the way of my own process. So Krishna reference, or not Krishna, Prabhupada, maybe the same thing. Prabhupada references Haridas Thakur, and always referencing him as a great example. But he says, don't try to imitate Haridas Thakur. His stage was different. We can't imitate. We can simply follow. And he gives two different words, anukarana and anusarana. Sound very similar, but they're two different words. One is imitation, and the other one is following in the footsteps. So if one tries to follow in the footsteps of great personalities, that is very nice, but we cannot imitate. Imitation is dangerous. And that's something that I can relate to, because, yeah, maybe I'll try to imitate your Govinda, or really any of you, because I experience any of you as more advanced than I am. So I'll try to imitate you, or even some of the personalities that we read about. And then I become more averse to Krishna consciousness rather than more loving. Because I'm like, oh, I don't like this stuff that I have to do. So I can get why imitation is dangerous. And I actually really liked doing the research for this purport, for this verse, because it helped me to really get familiar with actually Prabhupada is really saying don't try to get ahead of where you're at, because that's very dangerous. And he gives different examples, which I like. He gives the example of Lord Shiva, who drank an ocean of poison, and he kept it in his throat. He didn't actually swallow it. But if someone tries to imitate Lord Shiva and indulges in intoxication like ganja, he'll go to hell, because Shiva is very powerful. So we can say well, Lord Shiva is a smoker, so we can also be a smoker. But we can't imitate. We can simply follow. I'm not sure what following Shiva looks like in that example, but imitating would look like also smoking, because Shiva does it, so I can do it too. So Prabhupada says, don't do that. And he gives another example, which is easier for me to comprehend, of the sunshine. And he says the sunshine is so strong that it can absorb the moisture from a filthy place, a contaminated place, without becoming contaminated itself. But if I, or we, I don't know if he's talking to me or us, but if I or we live in that place for some time, where there's urine or stool or anything that's contaminated, then we'll become contaminated because we're not powerful, like the sun or like Shiva. And then, so this is a verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 10:33-29. Tejiyasam na doshaya. And he says, those who are powerful, if someone does something which is very extraordinary, that is not to be imitated. You have to follow the rules and regulations. That will give you progress. Don't try to imitate. Just be in your position. It's very pacifying. Just be where you're at. That's at least that's how I interpret that. I don't know if that's what he's saying. Try to follow the rules and regulations. I like that he says try, because that's very much where I'm at. I'm in the trying stage. I'm not in the following the rules and regulations. I'm very much in the trying. So I specifically picked the lectures where he said try. There's some where he says just do it. Maybe I included some of them, but I specifically chose the ones where he says try, because that speaks to me where I'm at. And he says, chant Hare Krishna, and gradually you'll get resolved. And then this is the most pacifying part. There is no need of being hasty. That is so pacifying for me, because that is what I want to do. I want to be hasty. I want to rush ahead, and I think that's what I need to do to be good, to be loved, for Krishna to love me, for you to love me, for my mom to love me, for anybody to love me. I need to be more than I am. And he says, there's no need for that. Don't be hasty. Just be where you're at. So one who restrains the senses and organs of action, but whose mind dwells on sense objects, certainly deludes himself and is called a pretender. And so then in the Bhagavad-gita, chapter 3, text 33, the translation says, even a man of knowledge acts according to his own nature, for everyone follows the nature he has acquired from the three modes. What can repression accomplish? So again, that so speaks to me, because my process of pretending to be more advanced than I am is to repress wherever I'm really at. And so very clearly here, to me at least, the point of the question is pretty clear, like repression doesn't accomplish anything. So what can repression accomplish? And then in parentheses, it's not there, but in parentheses it says nothing. Doesn't really say that. That's what I fill it with.
You're reading between the lines.
Reading between the lines, yes. I feel fairly confident about that one. So this also spoke to me in a way where I'm at. This is a lecture on the nectar of devotion in Vrindavan, October 20th of 1972. He says, the desire for sex life is there in every human being, but when the boy and the girl come to the mature stage, it becomes manifest. It's not learned artificially. Similarly, the raga marga, swarupa siddhi, becomes revealed or manifest. Shravanadi shuddha chitte karaye udaya. Udaya, this very word udaya is used, just like the sun. The sun becomes visible when the sun rises automatically. You can't force the sun to rise at the dead of the night. That's not possible. The sun will rise, pacifying it. You just wait. When the time will be right, you'll find the sun. So what that speaks to me is, again, when the time is right for me to be at whatever stage, that's when I'll be at that stage, and not sooner. Just like I can't force the sun to rise when it's not rising. I can't force, at least how I interpret it, I can't force my advancement any more than just how my advancement will naturally develop through whatever is my sincere or my authentic devotion, my authentic process. I can't force it, which is again pacifying, because it takes the pressure that I should be doing more to try to make myself more advanced. But at least how I interpret this, not like in a defeating way of like, oh, I can't do anything about it, but yeah, in a way, I can't do anything about it, so let me just do what is actually sincere. And he'll speak to that later on in our class here. So then the very following verse, so 3:7, where he says, on the other hand, he who controls the senses by the mind and engages his active organs in works of devotion without attachment is by far superior. And what Prabhupada elaborates on that, he says, yes, instead of artificially trying to meditate and control the senses, just engage your senses in the activities of Krishna consciousness, and gradually, I like the words gradually, the words try, gradually you'll be happy. Your senses will be controlled. And again, parentheses, gradually. And then in the same lecture, Prabhupada references chapter 9, text 14. And part of his purport and translation says, so this process, chanting of Hare Krishna mantra and gradually to develop Krishna consciousness, is the only means, I mean to say, elevating yourself to the perfectional stage, which is meant for this human life. Otherwise, we are simply cutting our own throat. So I think he's like really speaking to me to don't try to artificially be perfect, because that's for sure one of my tendencies, one of my grunches is trying to be perfect. So here he's just like over and over telling me just chant, and gradually you'll develop this Krishna consciousness. Don't force yourself. You'll kill yourself. You're cutting your own throat. Different analogies for you'll harm yourself if you try to be more perfect, more advanced, more developed than you really are. I'm pretty sure he was speaking directly to me. Okay, so this is from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 26, Text 13. Purport. It says, the so-called brahmachari becomes agitated by women, and the vanaprastha may again become captivated into having sex with his wife. Or he may begin to search out another wife. Due to some sentiment, he may give up his own wife and come into the association of devotees and a spiritual master. But due to his past sinful life, he cannot stay. Instead of being elevated to Krishna consciousness, he falls down, being attracted by Cupid, and takes to another wife for sex enjoyment. The fall of the neophyte devotee from the path of Krishna consciousness down to material life is described in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 5, Text 16 by Narada Muni. Tyaktva svadharmam charanam bhujam harer vajan apakbota patet tato yadi yatra kva vavajram abud amushya kim ko varta apto vajatam swadharmataha. And I really liked what Prabhupada says about that particular verse. This indicates that although a neophyte devotee may fall down from the path of Krishna consciousness due to his immaturity, his service to Krishna never goes in vain. So that's again very pacifying, because I'm already expecting. In fact, I'm committed to falling down from this path of Krishna consciousness, if I'm just being honest with where I'm at. And so it's very pacifying to hear that whatever service I have done, whatever service I do, that's never wasted, that's never in vain. Even if I do fall down, all of that remains until I'm ready to, maybe like the analogy that you've given, dear Govinda, is like the path in the jungle. And like the path is there and you can walk along the path, and then you might just run off into the woods and get lost and whatever, and you can always come back to the path and continue. That's how I interpret this. Whatever advancement I make, or we make, we can fall down from that path, and that's never lost. And in contrast, Prabhupada says, however, a person who remains steadfast in his family duty or so-called social or family obligation, but does not take to Krishna consciousness, receives no profit. So again, Krishna and Prabhupada are really meeting me where I'm at in terms of whatever sincere devotional service I'm eager to perform. That's for my advancement, that's for my benefit, and I can always choose to come down from that, and I have a checkpoint wherever I left off, and I can come back and continue, which is again very pacifying that I don't have to do it all in one try. Yes. Then the next, Prabhupada gives an example in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila 11:176. That's very long. In part of the purport is very long purport, so I only took some of it. He mentions that the senses are very strong, and if a neophyte devotee, I can really relate to all the neophyte purports, imitates Haridas Thakur, again referencing imitating Haridas Thakur, his enemies, Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mada, and Matsarya, will disturb and fatigue him. I can relate. I mean, I don't know exactly what each of those means, but I can certainly relate to being fatigued by different...
Lust, anger, greed, envy, madness.
Yeah. I can relate to at least all of those. Will disturb and fatigue him. So instead of chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra in a secluded place, he says, instead of chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, the neophyte will simply sleep soundly. So he says, however, if one simply imitates advanced spiritual life, he will fall down. Again, coming back to falling down, just like the Sahajiyas, which from my understanding are pretenders, are someone that will do the things for show, but in their own mind or in their own seclusion, they'll just kind of do whatever. So he gives the example, if one imitates advanced spiritual life, then he will fall down just like these folks. So we've still got a while to go. So this is a letter that Prabhupada wrote to Murdapriya. I'm not sure if that's a person or a place. This was in 1975. And he says, however, in the neophyte stage, it is best to develop firm faith that just by chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, everything else will come. So that's the part that I'm mostly focusing on. And then he says, and try to avoid the 10 offenses. So please continue to chant your 16 rounds and follow carefully. See, that's why the second part I don't pay so much attention to. Just chant your 16 rounds daily and follow carefully the 4 rules and regulations, and Krishna will help you more and more. So the part that I like to focus on is it's best to develop firm faith, because that's not where I'm at. I don't have that firm faith. So something that I realize is when I try to do something from a place where like I would have firm faith, or like firm conviction, then it's like kind of flat, or not potent, because I don't have that firm conviction. And so I like that he says it's best just to work on developing that firm faith. And just by chanting your 16 rounds, everything else will come. Again, very pacifying, because I can chant 16 rounds. Not necessarily that I'm focused or paying attention or ecstatic when I'm doing it. Sometimes for like 1 or 2 mantras, I have that experience, but it's very brief. So like he says, just continue with that process, and gradually everything else will come. Again, very, very pacifying. And yes, so Prabhupada references the Mahabhagavata, the Pandita Samadarshina. He says, yes, so like it's true. In my view, everyone is the same. He says this is a higher stage, a higher vision. But again, he gives the example of a neophyte doesn't have the awareness to simultaneously see everyone with equal vision, while being able to make distinctions between the neophyte devotee, the advanced devotee, the non-devotee. And so he says, because we're in the neophyte stage, we shouldn't try to imitate the vision of Mahabhagavata. So we shouldn't artificially see us like, oh yes, we're all one, everyone's the same, because we don't, well, the neophyte, I don't know if we is appropriate, but the neophyte doesn't have the authentic vision to be able to authentically see everyone the same. So next lecture purport from the Nectar of Instruction 5. One whose faith is soft and pliable is called a neophyte, but by gradually following the process, he will rise to the platform of a first-class devotee. Everyone begins his devotional life from the neophyte stage. It's pacifying for me also. But if one properly finishes chanting the prescribed number of rounds of Harinama, he is elevated step by step to the highest platform, Uttama Adhikari. So again, I just love that he has this message, which in a way is something that I've not seen. I don't know if I've avoided it. I've not seen it before. I've most heard his strong language of like, you should, or if you don't do this one thing, then like everything else is a waste. If you're not perfectly in Krishna consciousness, you just suck. I'm paraphrasing with that one. Yes, so it's very pacifying. Just everyone starts the neophyte, and you just chant your 16 rounds, and you're just gradually elevated. Like you can't change your so I'm hearing you can't speed up your process. All you can do is do what's sincere. At least chant your 16 rounds. Do whatever is sincere service is available to you, and then you just get to cultivate patience along the way. So it's almost like. It's almost even more valuable. I'm seeing to cultivate my spiritual advancement at my own pace than to try to force it, because then I also get to cultivate patience along the way, which is also an auspicious quality. Yes, and I like that on a lecture on the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 16, Text 24, he even says, it requires great advancement of spiritual life when one can concentrate in chanting Hare Krishna. It is not so easy. So it's like, wow, that's great. I like that Prabhupada admits that. Because I think in other, I don't know if I'm making this up, but I think in other places I've heard something like, yeah, if you're not focusing on your chanting, then it's wasted. Then it's like, it serves no value. So that's like, well, for me, discouraging, because then I think, well, then I shouldn't even be chanting, because I'm definitely not focusing on it. So I shouldn't chant. And so I like it here. He says, yes, it requires great advancement of spiritual life when one can concentrate in chanting Hare Krishna. It is not so easy. If in the neophyte stage, if you try to imitate the advanced stage, then it will simply be ludicrous. Yes, therefore the neophyte must have many engagements to support oneself in their process. Yes, again, just in different morning walks, different room conversations, he just says, don't try to be perfect artificially, don't artificially imitate. And this is one particular room conversation in July 16, 1968 in Montreal, Canada. And yes, yes. And he gives
some Montreal fans here.
He gives some story of some monkey. I didn't fully understand, but the idea is like there's this sawman, he calls him, or lumberjack, I guess. And he's cutting some wood, and he's like halfway done cutting it, so he puts a plug to stop. And I have difficulty visualizing, is the tree upright? I don't know, but anyway. And then there's a monkey, and he wants to imitate the man. So he doesn't realize that somehow he's in the way of. Again, I don't know if the tree is upright. I don't know exactly. I didn't even put it on here because I don't know how to visualize it. But anyway, he removes the plug that the sawman put there, and somehow he gets trapped by the tree, and then he dies. So he says, don't be like the monkey. So don't imitate. So expert means whatever he is doing, he must do it very nicely. That's all. Suppose you're sweeping this room. You can do it very nicely to your best knowledge. That is expert. The people will say, "Oh, you have very nicely done." Yeah, I like the way that Prabhupada speaks, like almost like Yoda. Any work you do, and I say that with like affection, or like I think it's any work you do it very nicely. That is expert. Don't do it haphazardly. To your best talent, to your best capacity, try to finish it very nicely, whatever it may be. And so if you are entrusted with some work, you do it very nicely. That is expert. If you think that you are unable to do that work, and so I like that because I think I'm very unable to do many of the things, then whatever work you can do, you take, but do it nicely. That is expert. Don't imitate. Don't, oh, I have no capacity to work in that way, but I want to imitate. Oh, he is doing that. I shall do that. Don't do that. Very direct. Don't do that. That is not expert. You take up what you can do very nicely and do it nicely. Expertness is just try to do which is easily perfect. This is why I put this at the end. My favorite thing that I read. Expertness is just try to do which is easily performed by you. You don't accept anything heavy task because Krishna does not want you to have to do this heavy task. Wow, that's so nice. Whatever you know, you just apply it. You dovetail it in Krishna consciousness. Krishna does not say you have to become like this, like that, then you can serve him. Does not say, just like the cow, just see, what does it know? He's just an animal, you see. But the calf knows to brush his head and tongue like this and love. It is doing and Krishna accepting. Yes, that is expert. First of all, find out what is easily done by you. So pacifying for me. Don't take anything which is not easily done by you. You're just like really driving the point home for me. You find out what is your occupation, what you can very nicely and easily perform, and do it for Krishna.
Yeah.
Yes, so that was my favorite conversation, because for me it summarized everything. I could have just said that part, but then I think it would have kind of been short, and I wouldn't know what else to say. So I really like that part because yes, it to me it really speaks to in some class we talked about the 4 principles of spiritual life. There was like cleanliness, compassion, austerity, and truthfulness. And like Malini, you mentioned, like the first 3 are dead. We only have truthfulness left. And for me, that's what this speaks to. It's truthfulness. It's like don't pretend that you're serving Krishna with love if you're doing it with like bitterness or resentment. Just whatever you can, easily, nicely. He doesn't say joyfully, but that's kind of like what I'm getting, nicely and easily. Whatever service is sincere, then just do that. And then like he gave the example of the husband and wife, then like gradually you will forget about these other things and you'll develop this higher taste. So there's no need to be hasty, which I like. Just do what comes easy. Never heard Prabhupada say that before, but he said it here. So I'm sticking to it. This is what I will remember. You know, Prabhupada just said, do what's easy. Just chant your rounds and do what's easy.
It's not your favorite Prabhupada quote.
Yes. Yes, and I like it. It's not my mental concoction. Prabhupada said it, so I can hold on to it. Yes. So I welcome questions, comments, concerns, corrections. Yes.
Thank you for your class. There's so much, you share so much. It's very aligned with me. And I was thinking about what you said. What's the distinction between meeting myself where I am at, with compassion and enthusiastically, performing devotional service, and going into like using where I am at to justify complacency, to justify, not being expert, not doing, what I can do.
Yeah.
So where is the fine line? Where is the distinction between the two? Where can I protect myself against, in the name of meeting myself where I am at, kind of going to rationalization.
Yes. Yes, like I think I've heard in the in different movement programs, and like, well, I'm just meeting myself where I'm at, and I don't feel like chanting my rounds today, so I just won't chant them. So something like this, like not using meeting myself where I'm at to, yeah, and I certainly don't have the answer to that question, but maybe the Argovinda does.
No, wait, I'm asking you.
You're asking me? Oh, okay.
Because you have done so much research,
Okay.
and hours yesterday
Okay.
research. I'm asking you. I don't want to.
So, well, I don't know for sure. I didn't. I on some level, I purposely didn't look for anything like that because I was just looking for the pacifying stuff. So what comes to mind in terms of my own process? Like I can use, for example, chanting 16 rounds. It's like, well, it's not like I'm doing it. It's not like I'm excited or like joyous about it. But I do know that like, okay, meeting myself where I'm at includes stretching myself, and includes stretching myself in a way that I can do consistently. Because if I said, okay, then I'm going to be more advanced, or like, I don't want to be complacent, so I'll chant 64 rounds, then like maybe I would do it once and then I would burn out and I would just stop altogether. So for me, it includes just like maybe a principle of intelligence of like, how much can I stretch myself in a way that's not going to discourage me from doing that long term. Kind of like, and I think I've heard you say this, dear Govinda, like the example of like for a muscle, like if you stress a muscle some, then it's healthy and it grows and it's stronger. And if you stress it too much, then it's damaged and then actually it becomes weaker. And like the same with stretching, like if you stretch a muscle, stretching can make it more flexible. If you stretch it too much, then there's the sensors in the muscle that are going to make it contract to keep it from damaging, and so then it's less effective than stretching a little bit. Stretching a whole lot is less effective than stretching a little bit.
That's your expertise.
Yes, and that's something that I do have expertise on. So that's how I see it, is stretching myself in a way that's going to promote whether the stronger muscle or the more flexible muscle, and not contribute to damaging maybe like my enthusiasm for service.
Thank you. Yeah, you remind me of like when we present the path, like when we present to people the path.
Yeah.
And the R, the R in SMART is realistic.
Yeah.
And the way we describe realistic is like, I want to set up myself for success.
Yes.
So that's why Prabhupada said, like, do what's easy.
Yes.
You're expert. Meet yourself where you're at.
Yes.
Trust in the process. Trust, and you're going to advance. Just follow. And then at the same time, when we describe realistic, we all say like stepping out of the comfort zone, not too far away.
Yes.
And then complacency will be like, oh, I'm going back to my, comfort zone, my mud hut, whatever, my mud of the pig.
Yes.
So that's what you're saying. I'm believing.
Yeah. I like what you said. It's like what I am saying is, stepping out of the comfort zone enough where like maybe I can connect with courage of like, wow, I'm out of the comfort zone. Look at me, like this. I'm more encouraged now, rather than like so far away that now I'm like bewildered and terrified, and then I freeze, and then I just, don't connect with courage, but more connect with like terror and discouragement. Yes. Which is what happens for me when I think of like, oh, the advanced stage, that's whatever, you hit your head against the wall because you're just like so mad in love, and you can just like fathom being away from Krishna, like, or like you eat the leftover rice that you give to the cow. It's like, wow, that's so unappealing. So then if I think of that's where I need to be, then I'm just like, forget this whole Krishna consciousness thing, that it just doesn't work for me. But if I say, okay, that just means chanting 16 rounds. Okay, like I can tolerate that.
You can tolerate that.
Yeah.
That's meet yourself where you're at.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's interesting what you were saying, because like to give that class, you did do a lot of research, and you apply yourself to find what you wanted to find.
Uh-huh.
And it seems that when you do read, you find what's your self-defeating want to find, like difficulties, or you need to be perfect, or that's what you were saying earlier.
Yes.
That when you read just for reading without looking for something specific, what you hear is like you have to.
Yes.
You have no choice.
Yes.
You're a loser, or you're a failure, or you're all that.
Yes.
And it's interesting. I can see that. I'm reading the books. I read the Bhagavad-gita. I don't know how many times, but each time I receive differently, and it's not because of Bhagavad-gita. Sometimes I'm thinking it's because the Bhagavad-gita is changing, but I know it's not the Bhagavad-gita that's changing. That's my own filter in reading the Bhagavad-gita.
Yeah. It's like when you and Dear Govinda mentioned, when people come to the foundational course a second time, they're like, oh, that process wasn't there, or whatever. It's like, no, the process was there. You just maybe, I don't know, weren't paying attention, or your filter's different, like you're saying. And what stood out to me in what you said about when I'm not looking for something specific, then, well, I am looking for something specific. It's just like on default, I'm looking for things that proves like I'm bad or perfection, like that. It's just like my automatic thing that I'm looking for. Versus when I have a conscious intention of what I'm looking for, then I can also find that. So I like, yes, I like you pointing that out, how, yes, also in the way that I relate with Prabhupada's books, if I'm not maybe consciously looking for something, I'm just going to default to my thing of reinforcing my beliefs that I don't want to reinforce. And I'm going to find it, because that's all that I've found so far until I did this thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
and it's interesting because in coaching, at least, I'm always in coaching with people, and the phenomena is the same for life.
Yeah.
Like we are going to only see in life the things, the event, the people that reinforce our self-defeating beliefs that we are not good enough, and definitely like covering the diamond instead of believing our diamond. And we have a tendency to filter life. And sometimes I see it's like obvious, like people, they receive 90% of feedback from the universe, from people in their life, that their belief system is wrong.
Yes.
But the one they are going to focus on is the 10% that reinforce that belief system. And that's all they see in their life.
Yes. I can relate. Maybe for me it's like 98%, where it's like for me even more ridiculous. And I fully relate with focusing on the 2%. Yes. Yes.
Hare Krishna.
Oh, Danielle?
Hi, Krishna. I just want to say, like, I really appreciate from one neophyte to another your boldness in leading such an inspiring class. I really, really appreciate you being willing to get up there and, teach a class in front of everyone. And I just think that's really amazing. I'm very impressed by you this morning. So thank you for that. And then also, I really like all the verses that you picked out, but I'm having a moment where I'm, sometimes when I'm reading things, there are apparent, like things that just don't seem congruent. So one of the verses that I really like, that I get a lot of, I guess a lot of feeling of like harmonizing and almost like a salve to me, is Bhagavad-gita chapter 3, verse 35, which says, it's far better to discharge one's prescribed duties, even though they may be faulty, than another's duties. Destruction in the course of performing one's own duty is better than engaging in another's duties, for to follow another's path is dangerous. Which, I mean, Prabhupada does talk about the same types of things, like not imitating others and the purport. But for me, I get a lot of get a lot of security from this verse, because it's like, oh, I can make a mistake. And it doesn't have to always be super easy, right? Because making mistakes feels bad, not hard. It feels hard sometimes to do things imperfectly, right? So hearing that verse that you just read, it doesn't seem congruent with this verse. And then also, if you could share just a little bit about how, I don't know, I feel like I want there to be more of an emphasis on it being okay to try. I feel like sometimes in the Krishna consciousness movement, it's a lot of focus on like staying at a lower level, like as far as prescribed duties are concerned. There's a lot of like food service, farm working, not that those things are not important or that they're not prestigious in their own right, but to go off and become an engineer, or to become a lawyer, or to become a brain surgeon, or like a very specialized like mechanic, or something that takes a lot of like money, time, effort, energy, physical and mental stimulation. There's going to be times when you don't want to study quantum physics. Like a very few, like Dear Govinda was talking about earlier this week, that there's a devotee out there who was studying mathematics as like his form of serving Prabhupada. But very few people do I hear are talking about like high level math and engineering and science and technology in serving Prabhupada. Much more do I hear people talking about like agriculture and restaurant work. And not that those things are not important, but I feel like sometimes these verses, it's like, okay, well, if it's really easy to sweep a floor, then I'll just stay sweeping the floor. And then I'll never find out that if I tried really just a little bit, I could become like a quantum physicist, So the incongruency and then the mediocrity, like how do we know when to look for more versus just staying where we feel comfortable, or where everyone before us has kind of said like, oh yeah, like we came from a family of farmers, so everyone in our family is going to be a farmer now, instead of saying, well, you know what, I'm really interested in math. Like if I just applied a little bit, I could do more. Like not in a better way, but just in a different way.
Yeah. So the first thing that I heard you say is about chapter 3, text 35. It's better to follow one's path imperfectly than follow another path, somebody else's path perfectly, something like this. Even though like following somebody else's path is full of danger. And you mentioned following our own path is not easy, or at times won't be easy. It's full of mistakes. And you're saying that, what I read about, find out what's easily done by you. Don't take anything which isn't easily done by you. Do what you can do nicely and easily. That seems in contradiction to that verse.
Which usually means that I'm in contradiction somehow, that I don't understand. So I think Prabhupada's perfect, definitely. Bhagavad-gita's perfect, Prabhupada's perfect. So I'm out of alignment somewhere. So that's where I have a question.
Yeah. And then you give the example of like, okay, maybe you or another devotee want to be a quantum physicist, whatever it is. And so much of maybe what's talked about in devotee association is like farm life or food service, restaurant work. And you're asking the question of, okay, how do I know, maybe like, how do I know if it's my service to do this thing that's very different? And like, to me, in a way, you answered it with the verse that you gave of it's better to follow our own path than to imitate somebody else's path. Like, I mean, I'm not one to tell you what your path is, but what comes to mind is like, if you know that in your heart you want to be a quantum physicist and that's how you want to serve Prabhupada, then to me that's what actually is your path and what's authentic. And then saying, well, okay, I guess I should instead work at a restaurant because that's like what others are doing. To me, that's answered by the very verse that you shared.
I'm gonna spend more time thinking about it. I appreciate your perspective, and yeah, I find it interesting and sometimes discouraging trying to understand, prescribed duties or karma, like dharma karma, and like understanding like how we undertake devotee life in material ways. And I see like very few examples of people who are going into, you know, the slaughterhouse of higher education or undertaking things that are more
Yeah.
tedious potentially. So yeah, I think these verses are very interesting, and I appreciate you bringing that one to my attention. Thank you, Isaiah.
Thank you for your sharing, Danielle. Brielle, you were gonna say something?
Oh yeah. That sentence, but he who makes a show of being a yogi while actually searching for the object of sense gratification must be called the greatest cheater. I was like, oh yeah, that's definitely me. And then at the same time, I was like, oh, it's a little bit harsh. It's like, where's the room for being sincere and at the same time being imperfect and being where we're at?
Yeah.
And yeah, it's like, does God stop loving us?
Yeah, like you can relate with, okay, you search for objects of sense gratification in your mind, and at the same time you undertake certain austerity, certain practices, so you can see some like incongruence in yourself, and you at the same time don't want to be harsh.
Mm-hmm.
And something that I came across in the research that that I was doing is something like doing a show would be something like to get attention, or to like aggrandize oneself, to get some kind of special recognition, to Prabhupada said, like to advertise oneself as something. And to me that's different than, okay, I'm gonna associate with devotees because that supports my own process, and for sure you're gonna see me chanting. To me that's different than like, hey, I'm like so good at chanting and I'm like really focusing and I'm like super into spiritual life, just so that you know. To me that's different than like a sincere endeavoring. And like, yeah, for me it would also be different, like because for sure, like in our what comes to me anyway, in our devotee association, yeah, we're gonna get recognition and encouragement, and to me in a certain way, at least for my own personal experience, like living here, it's so encouraged my own spiritual growth, to be in a supportive and encouraging environment, where like even like you're sharing, Danielle, of like, oh, you appreciated me coming up here, like that was very encouraging. And so to me that's different than like, okay, I'm gonna do this class so that you guys can see that I'm so spiritually advanced. To me that's different than sincere endeavoring. And like, yeah, we might get a recognition and appreciation. To me the consciousness is very different.
Okay. And then let's say we're like imperfect, which we all are. Then like there's like the ideal of where we should be, or the best place to be, and then there's where we're at. And so like, does God like, how does God see us in that? Like, does God see us with loving eyes, or is God disappointed, or like?
So appreciate your question.
It's a question without an answer.
Well, I can't give a definitive answer, but my intellectual understanding is that Krishna sees our sincerity, to whatever extent that's true. Like Krishna maybe does the opposite that I do. I neglect what I appreciate and I focus on what's wrong. And my understanding is, I don't know if it's like the polar opposite, but that Krishna has the opposite bias, where he'll focus on our sincerity and our intention, our attempts, over our results, or what we actually did or didn't do.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. I know I had an agenda, but that was actually really Thank you. I don't know. I don't think I've heard that before, what you just said. Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes Prabhupada said that Krishna see what you're giving.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that's something I came across in my research briefly.
That's so sweet. I think focuses on our sincerity.
Yeah.
Sometimes people.
Yes, there's a story of Hanuman, and sometimes it says scroll, sometimes it says spider. You know, like Hanuman is very strong, and when they were building the bridge to go to Lanka to deliver Sita from Ravana, then Hanuman, he was strong and he was carrying big boulder to put on the bridge to make the bridge. And then there is some story says a scroll, some story says spider, so I'm not going to pronounce myself about that, but let's say it's a spider. It's easier for me to pronounce. Like, and then there is a spider. He really wanted to serve Ram. He wanted to serve Ram so much, and then the spider, he was like just carrying like a little grain of sand, and then he was like trying to help, and of course the grain of sand, like Hanuman, he passed by and said, "Get out of the way!" You know, to the spider. I say, you know, you're not doing anything. You're useless. You know, to build the bridge to Lanka, what's a grain of sand is going to do? And then Ram chastised him and said, you know, like there's no difference between your big boulder and that grain of sand.
That's nice. It reminds me of something that I read with you recently about the sparrow who laid her eggs next to the ocean, and then the ocean swept next to the shore, and the ocean swept the eggs away. And so the sparrow was bargaining with the ocean, "Please give my eggs back," and the ocean refused. So then the sparrow was like, "Okay, I'm gonna dry you up." And so she started like, you know, taking the beak and drying out the ocean, and she was just, I guess, so clear intentioned. And the news made it to Garuda, Vishnu's, I don't know, gigantic bird, and Garuda felt compassion for his sister and could see like, wow, your intention, your determination is so auspicious that then he bargained with the ocean, "Okay, return the eggs or I'll take up the work of the sparrow." So it reminded me also like seeing the intention, even if maybe if it's unrealistic or whatever it might be, just like the sincerity of the intention is what counts.
I really appreciate that because we're going to do the advanced course soon, and sometimes I think that like what power do we really have to heal ourselves? And then at the same time, the advanced course is all about healing basically, but it requires us. It's like we don't have power to. It's almost like what we do in the advanced. It's not really. We're just showing up in our sincerity, and then like Krishna's taking away the weeds. And it's like humbling to remember like all I need to do is show up to whatever it is, whether it's my personal growth process or like my work.
Show up and trust.
Show up and trust.
I like that example in connection to the story of the spider, how the spider, the spider was serving with like the grain of sand, what have you, but like really the service was in the spider's devotion, the spider's sincerity. So like you're making that connection for the advanced course, like it's not necessarily that we're moving boulders, but it's we're showing up with sincerity in the little grains of sand that we're moving around, and then Krishna does the rest.
Yes, Melanie, why did you say trust? Why did you add trust to that?
Because I know that in our advanced course, what makes a difference is because people trust the process, and in life it's the same. If we are in a big container of Krishna's seminar, which is our life, which is always on purpose. Life is always on purpose, and if we could trust that it is on purpose, then naturally we'll make progress and we'll go towards self-realization in a very organic way. So trust, that's the process called Shraddha. Shraddha is not translated as trust, is translated as faith. So it's, and that's the process of devotional service is a build-up of faith, Shraddha, increasing the faith little by little from one level of faith to the next, to the next, to the next. In a seminar, that's so much what we endeavor to do, to create a cocoon where people feel trusted. And when they feel trusted, then they can like be on purpose with their life, with the process of what's happening. And then by doing that, then all the resistance to growth is getting out of the way, like that. And then Krishna does the rest. He meets us there.
Sometimes Prabhupada defines Shraddha as respect, just a basic respect, as we certainly often need to find it as faith, but basic respect, like that, like, okay, well, here we are on a Saturday morning, many things we could do. I must have some respect for Bhagavad-gita, for those who are endeavoring to practice bhakti yoga, to associate, enough respect to associate. So sometimes just the basic respect related to the discussion. I mean, my understanding is even the spirit souls who aren't giving any endeavors for spiritual life and are just completely covered in maliciousness and just gross materialism, whatever species, Krishna is always lovingly compassionate, lovingly compassionate, and encouraging in so many ways, like meeting us where we're at and encouraging us to move forward to our actual bliss, which is that full devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Yes, and then that, because like whether he's sending this manual for achieving the highest purpose of life, Prabhupada's books, he's sending pure devotees like Srila Prabhupada, we discussed yesterday, Rasoham Apsukanti, in the taste of water, there's a chance to remember who we are as parts and parcels of God. He's giving the holy name. He appeared as Lord Chaitanya 500 years. He's giving his, so in so many, he's encouraging us to move forward. And sometimes that encouragement comes in the form of experiencing the miseries and the suffering of forgetfulness of material life. And so like, I first of all, I'm very enlivened by your class and discussion, as I thank you. I'm very enlivened. And yeah, so Krishna's meeting us where we're at and encouraging us to move, encouraging us to progress, both. And we can disregard the encouragement, or we can embrace it. And Krishna is always loving. And sure, he's more loving when we cooperate with him. But even if we completely reject, he's always compassionate and loving. And so we can follow that example. And I think that's the theme of these verses. Like, don't be a pretender. What can repression accomplish? Meet yourself. Don't try to do someone else's role like that. So we accept. Acceptance is different than resignation. We can accept ourselves where we're at. Accept ourselves where we're at, and be authentic as a foundation for spiritual progress, not as the ultimate goal in itself, but as a context for spiritual progress. And also this kind of, I just want to be authentic. Okay, well, what is this I? Well, the I essentially, I am a tongue and a belly. No, because let's get, what is this I that wants to be authentic? Am I a tongue, belly? Am I the genitals? Am I my mind who tells me I just need 4 hours more of sleep? That's me. I just want to be authentic. So am I my mind? Okay, and sometimes it is, yeah, I do identify as the belly, or I do identify as this ego need for appreciation, and I want more of it, and like that. Okay. And as spirit souls having a human experience, it's so important to realize that being authentic often means voluntarily giving up immediate gratification for longer term fulfillment. The dogs and cats and the squirrels, they don't do that. But So it's the analogy of the reins, the horses and the cart and the chariot, not pulling the reins too tight. And so sometimes being authentic is, to not pretend that I'm more advanced than I am, and let's have those 5 extra ladus and let's be authentic and like that. Carrot ladus. Yes. Okay. But for human beings, being authentic often means, and because we don't want to repress that, that's what being real means often, to give up immediate gratification for a longer term goal. And just because to respond to that part of the conversation, in the name of being authentic, then I'll just become a decadent sense gratifier. It means meeting ourselves where we're at and cultivating realization of who I am as a spirit soul, servant of Krishna. So being authentic as a foundation for progressing towards the highest purpose of life. And in this verse, I really like this pretender verse. I know we focus a lot on that in our Bhagavad-gita course. It's so much of we emphasize that a lot in the Sappho programs. And so so Krishna's talking to Arjuna, and for Arjuna, for you to go to the forest and meditate, you're being a pretender. Because here's the thing: you want to fight. You're a warrior. You want to do battle, and so that would be repression. That would be pretension. Because like Arjuna, even if you went to the forest, you're going to find someone to fight with. There's going to be like some Brahmin sages meditating, and they're going to be disturbed by some criminal elements, and so you're going to want to defend the Brahmins, because that's who you are. And so don't pretend that it's not. So there's a difference between like someone who's pretending, I'm just meditating and I have no desire. Because the verse before this, Krishna says, we can't stop doing something even for a moment. So we're going to be active. So Krishna is addressing in the name of yoga or meditation, just be, stop all activity, just be. And so that's pretension. That's different than someone, I'm endeavoring to serve Krishna, practice sadhana, do bhakti yoga, and I got desires that are not bhakti yoga. And okay, I'm in this process of purification. I'm not pretending that I don't have desires that are separate from spiritual life. And so to acknowledge that authentically. And I'll just comment on, as far as there's many devotees who have gone to university. Yesterday with Riel.
Even devotees with PhDs.
Yeah, and so with the Maha Mantra studies, I endeavor to use the educational structure in Prabhupada's service. Many devotees have done that. Yesterday with Brielle, I mentioned Prabhupada would sometimes state the strategy: go in like a pin and out like a plow. Okay, and in many ways it defines our strategy in pretty much everything we're doing with the Sappho programs. A plow might be, a plow, and sometimes there's just the plow program, where let's show up in a town or a city, and let's just have like 20 of us and do Harinam and book distribution. Again, like the plow program. At the same time, for the most part, kind of like the university program is going in like a pin and out like a plow. That's been our endeavor the past 30 years. I'm going to say this with confidence, the vast majority of devotees, of let's say aspiring devotees in Prabhupada, the vast majority, not all, the vast majority of devotees who go into university, they go in like a pin and they never come out. I'm making that distinction. It's just a fact. They just get bewildered there. They just get bewildered.
Yeah.
Now, and so like they go in like a pin and they just get philosophically bewildered in terms of principles and purpose. I've seen so many sad examples of that, and some aren't just like sad, like funny. Some are like really tragic. I saw a video. It's someone who I 1992. I was a guru teacher, day school. It's a little known fact. I was a guru, and I could talk math and English and history. I know one of my students, and I saw a video of him recently, and he went to university, got a master's degree, and he's just completely bewildered. He's just like that. So this is my perception. So the vast majority of like Bhakti Yoga practitioners who go into with university, there's great potential for amazing service in academia. Great potential for amazing service. Most devotees they go in like a pin, and they never come out. They just get lost there. Just a fact. Now there's like I gave the example of Richard Thompson. Now he got his degrees in math before he came to Prabhupada's movement, but he's an example where he's used his Western education in very effective ways. So just wanted to comment on a few things. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Bhagavad-gita ki jai.
Hare Krishna. Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna, thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hey, Eze. Hare Krishna.
Krishna.
I wanted to share with you that your class really touched me, and I had tears in my eyes. Just seeing your spirit of discovery, and even that you had like an agenda to pull out what you wanted from the philosophy. It was just like endearing, and it means a lot to me to experience you sincerely practicing, even wherever you're at. I'm not worried about the level of your consciousness, just your sincere effort really touches me.
Thanks for sharing that.